Mike Huckabee was speaking at the Value Voters Summit, and he thinks he's found the real reason that America is in trouble. Really? What is that reason?
And I know there are many people who want to blame this current president, this administration, but may I say that part of the challenge that we face, the reason that we may be on the precipice of disaster in this country, is because when the phone rings in our hand, we aren't answering.
The precipice of disaster. Okay. So that's interesting. Someone isn't blaming Obama for a change. Wow. Okay, so whose fault is it, and what is it that he's trying to get at with the phone thing?
We're not in trouble because the phone isn't being answered in the agencies of government, but because when the call is coming to us from God.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we have the problem. We're not answering the phone for God. So, Mike, what do we do about it?
Some of you are frustrated and even upset and angry about America. I get it. Can I say to you that the answer is as simple as it is that we answer the phones in our hearts that God is ringing, and He's asking, will we register people to vote? Will we get them to the polls to vote? Will we hire the people that will take our values to this city? And will we fire the ones who refuse to hear not only our hearts, but God's heart?
Moving. Absolutely stirring, Mike. You know what I don't understand is why God wouldn't just rig an election. He's God. He should be able to pull off voter fraud, at least, right? But seriously, though, fire everyone that doesn't believe the way that you do. Essentially what he's trying to say. Okay, got it. That's your plan. That's your mindset. What this is, and why this bothers me, is this is essentially a campaign speech wrapped up in a sermon. The mixing in of religion and politics that is so infused into the right wing of today. Now, I don't know whether to say hallelujah or write a campaign check after this speech. Hell, I might as well do both. Hey, and maybe while we're at it, we can just pass the collection plate across from church and then send it right to the fucking RNC. It really is, to me, disturbing, the level of religiosity inherent now in our politics, especially in a main party, and especially since we're supposed to be a secular nation. Jordan, I imagine that you are also probably upset.
I am, but I'm upset at what he actually said. So I want to point out this has been reported by liberal rags of Huckabee trying to argue that we should establish a religious test for all. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is the same thing that you and I and Dan say every time. He's saying elect people who share your values. And now for Huckabee, one of those important values is what religious system you identify with. And we'll get more into where he's wrong about that. But that's what he's saying here. He's not trying to argue for a official state religion or a test, or to literally go in and give pink slips to like the secretary if she's not a Christian. What he's saying is elect people who are Christians. Like that's what he's trying to rile up voters to do. Yada yada yada. I still disagree with him about that. So like let's talk about what he said there though. Okay, so he says God's calling you. Are you going to answer? Now, I could get into that and go into the weeds there, but I get that this isn't a Christian show. You're not here for me to like teach a theological lesson, but I won't. But I do want to like keep talking enough about it to keep it relative here. And like this is where like Huckabee's and people like Huckabee, who I've already defended him a little bit. Let me defend him a little bit more. The man was a fantastic governor. Did a great job as governor of Arkansas. Since then, he's been a horrible human being. But like he's kind of like my family knows him from back in the day. Like it's hard for me to completely turn on Huckabee. But after stuff like this, I kind of have to, because there's just a point where you have to be honest and say, all right, dude, you're just bad, and that's where he's gone now. So like this is one thing that always like even whenever I was quote unquote conservative, this kind of like it struck me as weird. Like conservatives argue against universal health care because they say, that's the state taking my money. Like it's gotta, the church should be doing these things, charities should be doing these things, because if you do it through taxes, then it's not, you're not changing people's hearts, and you're taking money from people, and and it's all this kind of stuff, and the government doesn't work. But then they turn around and they say the way God is going to change America and make America better is through the government. Like he says, are we answering God's call? Are we not? And he doesn't follow with, are you getting out there and self-sacrificing and serving and loving your neighbor and your enemy? No, are we registering people to vote? Because so these are the two competing ideologies in the religious right, and this massive cognitive dissonance that has to go on for every member of the religious right. The foundational pillars of the religious right is the government can't do anything right. Religion is the most important thing. You should push your religion through the government. So I mean, this thing that you value more than anything else, the way to spread it is through this thing that never works, and that's ridiculous. Again, I know you guys don't want me to go into from a Christian perspective why that's stupid, but from a logical perspective, from a governmental perspective, it doesn't make sense. It's just idiotic. And I just want to finally close. I've got to go into a little bit of theology, like the way Christ actually did, go about establishing the kingdom of God on earth, sacrifice, and refusing public office. So Mike Huckabee, who went from being a pastor to holding public office, that route is questionable at best from a Christian perspective as a way to set things right in the world.
Okay, first up, Mike Huckabee, I believe, has a ringing in his ear. Whether or not that's God is a whole other topic. The second, I would like to suggest to God, if he's listening tonight, that perhaps he get on Ello, because I cut my landline a long time ago, and seriously, God, message me, DM me, Snapchat me, because, if you want me to vote for somebody, you got to get in there, because I'm not probably answering the phone. The second and third and fourth and fifth thing about all of this fun stuff is the idea of, listen, this is kind of it's fun to make fun of him, and but I totally agree with Jordan that how I saw this represented throughout the liberal blogosphere was ridiculous. He's not handing out pink slips to atheists. He's legitimately saying, I'm a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and you should vote for those people too. It's and he also, this speech is in front of fellow cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs folks. So it's like he gave a family values speech in front of the Family Research Council. It's like giving a speech in denial to the NFL. It's sort of expected. So it's not, it wasn't really that, surprising to me. Is this a huge problem in American politics, though? For sure. But as I've said on the show previously, I think a lot of this really comes down to the last throes of a losing culture and a baby boomer to boot. They're losing power, they're getting old, and I think for our generation, this is the stuff that's going to slowly, fade off into the distance. But I have a hope that younger Christians, even though I'm an atheist, that they will take more of Jordan's standpoint of things, and these guys, the old Huckabees, all the way down to the sliding scale of Pat Robertsons that are just completely off the rails. They're from a different time, they had a different value system, even though that value system was still better than their own, even in the 60s and 70s. But it is one of those things. I think this is the last kind of squawking about it. He's still upset about gay marriage, but let's call a spade a spade. It prints money. It's a cottage industry that Mike Huckabee can always get a for sure check from, and all of these folks go around. It's no different than the old, going around to tents and medicine shows. It's the same thing, and you're never going to totally get rid of it. There's always going to be a place for these guys to line their pockets.
Well, and so your analysis of it from that side is absolutely right. But I want to kind of offer my own kind of speculation here about why the blogosphere is presenting it the way they are. Why these left-leaning publications are just blatantly misrepresenting a man who's already saying something so bad there's really no need to misrepresent it. But and so one, obviously, it's for the clickbait, of course. That's the world we live in. They need money just like Huckabee needs money. So they say stuff that riles up their base. But the other thing is because if you're, a left-wing person, Huckabee is scary. And Cenk Uygur has even said this. I remember during the 2012 elections, I guess it was closer to 2011 he said this. He was absolutely right. I'll go a little further. Not only could Huckabee have beaten Obama if he had ran in 2012, he would have beaten Obama if he ran in 2012. Huckabee has not immaculate, but a really good record in Arkansas to fall back on. He really gins up the evangelical base of the right wing, but his policies are most of them he's certainly got some conservative policies. Everybody's going to start digging up stuff, but generally speaking, the man governed from the middle. The right side of the middle, but the middle. And he did a good job with the little state. And he's really affable. Like he can come across as this likable guy, as hard as that is to believe whenever you see stuff like this. But like the dude is a threat, man. He's got this populist streak in him that he was probably the only person that could have beaten President Obama, and he didn't run. Now since then he's had 3 or 4 more years of foot and mouth, TV show things. Like I don't know that he's a threat anymore, because he's been on Fox News too long. Like there's too many sound bites, there's too much stuff to play that makes him, not really a legitimate candidate. I think he's okay with that because he makes a lot more money now than he would in office. But yeah, man, the left is rightfully so terrified of Mike Huckabee because he's the wild card on the right that could upset. I don't know if he could have upset Hillary, but he's the only one who could throw a real run for money.
All right, I'm going to just quickly totally disagree with that. Mike Huckabee is way too honest to ever get anywhere far in national politics. I don't think he would ever make it, especially with the devout right-wing stuff. He would be a fundraising machine for the Democratic Party. You could just robocall all week from stuff he said in February. So I don't think that would ever work nationally, but I really actually want to take a quick second because you hit on something that I think is really interesting, which is how did the liberal press, which might be the real, actually more interesting conversation from this pinata conversation, is this. Atheism, said the atheist, online is becoming its weird own religion, and it really creeps me out. It's becoming its own belief system, and I don't mean that like it's the same as does blah blah blah. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's got its own clickbait machine that exists. So you almost want to compare it to feminism. It's starting to get co-opted by internet publications because they know there's enough of a community there that it will go to these things. And I think media literacy is something that we really need to add into these conversations in our shows and just in general in the media, because I don't think people totally get how clickbait works or why this works or financially why it makes sense to tent pole these kinds of groups, because they will for sure share it. And so you're seeing more and more of that content. And I think what's funny is that people think that it means more and more of these people exist, and it doesn't mean that. It just means that if there's a group of people that say, like Star Wars, the arts media will just pummel them with Star Wars, and they know that no matter what they put out, there will be a ton of clicks. It works the same for all these little miniature cottage industries, such as atheism, Christianity on the flip side. But atheists are like becoming devout and angry, and like, they're getting upset about weird shit and getting really borderline Islamophobic, and so it's really problematic for people like me who are atheists going like, what the hell? Like, I'm like Jimmy Carter. He's a Christian. I liked him as a president. Wasn't around back then to vote for him. Wasn't alive on the planet. But I think that to make these demonizing these people and be and to like take their words out of context. It's so ironic, right? Like, why do we hate that religious guy? Well, gotta take him out of context. Like, wait, no, that's what we hate about the religious people. So yeah, it's so bizarre what we've entered into sometimes with the internet media age.